Today, thanks to Cyberport, I'm able to deliver you the review of the Lenovo Miix 510. And it's definitely not hard to tell that this is another Surface 4 Pro competitor, just with a way more affordable price. But how much of a Surface 4 Pro alternative is it really? I would say let's find out and talk about that tablet before we are going into the type cover and the pen just a little bit later. But just in terms of overall design, size and thickness, it appears to be a lot like the Surface 4 Pro, which still after all is kind of the benchmark here. But there are a few differences after all. First of all, in terms of weight, with about 880 grams, it is noticeably heavier. It is also not completely flat, and therefore if you put it on the desk, it wobbles just a little bit, but nothing you should really worry about. And then the even greater thing to see is that we have pretty much the exact same high quality solid build without any creaking or bending, really well made, same as the watch band hinge, because of course we have cutouts on both sides, so we can take this and open this, as you can see here, all the way back, use it with the stylus or use it a little bit more upright as a laptop replacement. And this hinge really will last you a long time because it feels very well made. The bezels, absolutely moderately sized, absolutely nothing to complain here. On the top and also along the sides we have a few ventilation holes. And if we talk about the ports, we have USB Type-C here, which is unfortunately only USB 3.0. And therefore you can use it to charge the device, but you will have to use this port. But at least it comes with a quite compact, in my opinion, charger, which is nice to see, and actually comes with a benefit, because you can charge the device and still use USB Type-C if you need it for any dongles. But the great thing is we don't even need it, since most devices still are USB Type-A, and we have that 3.0 port here as well. Of course, we have one speaker here on the other side, we have the second one, and headphone jack, volume rocker, and the power button. The one thing that baffles me a little bit though to see is that here in theory there should be the micro SD card slot, but this seems like solid plastic, and I didn't want to break anything. But in case you know if that is available, or maybe it's depending on configuration, but I did not find anything here in that regard, which is a little bit weird. Okay, let's talk about the keyboard here, and this is actually one of my highlights here for sure, because for one reason. Of course you can use it flat, and of course you can use it angled. Unfortunately, it doesn't come with backlit keys, but I've read about a few certain configurations actually offering this. Maybe it's just not yet available. I didn't find it, but I read about it. But it is the feedback that absolutely blew my mind, because we have, for such a thin device that just flexes a little bit on really hard pressing, a nice amount of travel, and it is this really satisfying feedback that is very quiet as well. And along with the layout, I don't know, it just works so great. I could type on it so fast and error-free, which impressed me. I've never seen this in this kind of way from a type cover, and not even from a lot of proper laptop keyboards. Great to see. Of course, we have function keys here for extra buttons. There is a function key as well. No function lock as I've seen, but I think there is a solution for that. At least it works for the media buttons first, which is more important for me. If we turn on the screen, I can also show you how well the trackpad works, because yes, it's still a little bit on the smaller side, but it reacts really nice, recognizes all gestures really well, and the behavior is really great to see. So this is definitely on the better side. Now what I want to talk about now is the display, and we don't need the type cover, which I've praised enough already, I think. Let me zoom in a little bit so we can see the display a little bit more up close. And I have to say, if you just check the minimum brightness with 0, it is pretty much complete darkness, and I used it with about 40% all the time. For this video we will use it 75. Sorry for not the best quality, but it is what it is. It is just 1080p, but this is not a problem at all, because we therefore don't have any scaling issues, which is nice to see, and it is a high quality display, because after all quite sharp, really great white point. And what shows that it is a high quality panel is that we have pretty much no light bleed at all, and a really nice and satisfying black, along with some great colors actually, because once you turn off all the enhancements in the Intel driver, which are usually enabled by default, you will have really natural colors that are still vibrant and vivid, with absolute solid viewing angles. And it is, after all, a very good display. Nothing else I could say here, and it is really nice done. So let's check the sound here, and I hope nothing will go wrong this time. No, I'm absolutely not a fan of those speakers because even though they are stereo, I have to say the maximum volume is almost a joke. I've heard a lot of phones that are louder and sound way more rich because the sound itself is very weak and very tinny. So not a great sound at all. The headphone jack therefore is absolutely okay, nothing to complain here about, but I would have definitely wished to see a lot more in the speaker department, but yeah, it is what it is. Now, in terms of performance, let me quickly go to the home screen. And for some reason, sometimes if you take off the type cover, something happens and it therefore doesn't really respond all that much on the keys. It's like some shift would be enabled or something like that, some button or so. I'm not quite sure what that is all about. If you can see, the SSD really fast in terms of read speeds, write speeds are still absolutely fine, and therefore it boots in about 8 seconds, which is absolutely great to see. I've already showed that it runs absolutely nice and super smooth here. In terms of performance, there's nothing to complain. It really runs great. For some reason, it just has a little bit trouble. Nothing, not sure. Maybe this is also because of the keyboard and so on. Like I said, there is something a little bit weird going on, which I've just noticed during my review period. Usually you don't notice that, and you shouldn't worry about that. It's just something a little bit odd. But in terms of performance, the i5 is absolutely more than enough. And I think in some ways, maybe you should be always good enough with the i3 here. Personally, I would have wished to actually see a Core M version here without any fans, because just to cover the performance, absolutely top for all normal tasks. You can video edit, of course, on it, but I wouldn't recommend it unless you maybe use Cyberlink Power DVD. For games, it's also not all that great. You can, of course, play some older, not AAA games and something like that, and you should be fine. But the thing that I want to talk about and why I would maybe wish for an i3 version here, which is available, or the Core M, which doesn't have a fan, it is the heat and the noise. And the heat itself is absolutely not an issue, and that's why I don't quite understand the fan behavior, because in normal use I was at around 35 to 40 degrees Celsius, which is nothing to be worried about at all, absolutely fine. And the device itself is even way cooler. But it is the sound that was a little bit weird, and I will just give you a little bit of a quick demo here so you can see what I mean. Okay, maybe don't give too much what you have seen on the noise meter, because it didn't really differentiate between the volume, because the first one was absolute ambient noise without anything going on, and the normal fan that turns on after all quite already at about 40 degrees is audible, which is weird to see, because at 40 degrees it shouldn't already turn on. And I've checked the internet, I tried to find something here. I found one person who had the exact same issue, was annoyed by that, and what he did is he throttled by his own choice the CPU down to 50%, and I've tried the same, and it works way better, because then the fans kick in way less, but they still do it sometimes, but it is just not necessary. So the fan management is way too aggressive. I asked Lenovo about it. They said this shouldn't be the case. They will contact me, but I just didn't get a reply yet. So maybe if I have something, I will put it down in the description. But just because of that, I have to say, the noise of the fan sounds a little bit whiny. It was a little bit annoying, but definitely not loud at all at any point. And it still managed to actually deliver really great temps, because I never reached more than about maybe 60 degrees. So they could even lower the fan speed after all. And as you have seen in the demo, the usual surface temperatures were at around mid-30s, which is absolutely fine. In terms of battery life, a full charge takes about 2.5 hours, still absolutely okay. And the battery life is, in my opinion, good, because I got something for about 5 hours to maybe 6.5. Average about, I would say, 5.5 to 6 sounds absolutely possible with a brightness of 40%. And this is still absolutely indoors fine enough. Outdoors, of course, you won't get that much, since you will have to raise the brightness, and then the display is, I would say, okay in terms of brightness, but it will be harder due to the glossy display. But in my opinion, that's absolutely okay in terms of battery life. Not great, but fine. Now, let's talk about that stylus here. Software, there's not really much to tell. Of course, there is some bloat here, but you can uninstall all of that. So that's why I want to actually focus on the pen here. If you quickly check that, of course, it is pressure sensitive. It has a battery, actually. You can just screw it off. And as you can see here, this is a straight line, and it just goes a little bit off, if you can maybe see that towards the end, because I did that test because I've seen a few people complaining if that happens, but as you can see here, it's not always the case, and I have to say it is a really well working one, because if you want to write something, you could use the keyboard here, and it has text recognition, because as you can see here, this actually works with my quite ugly handwriting really well. It accepts that really nice. Pressure points also work. Yeah, this of course you have two buttons here, as you can see. One is, for example, to select something, and the other one is if you just want to erase something. And in terms of precision, it's absolutely there, because you can make fine lines, and you can of course push also harder. So this is absolutely no problem at all, and it works precisely. If you just want to see, this is a test, and it works really nice. So I can't really judge it at all. I can't really do much without it. I'm not artistic or anything, but as you can see here, it reacts. There is not really any noticeable delay. As you can see here, reacts very well. Of course, it's still writing on glass, and therefore a little bit odd, but in my opinion, it absolutely knows to shine. Now, let me quickly get back, and I'm actually not sure why it's not happening. Give me a second. Okay, here we are. Something was a little bit off. So we covered all. Let's take a look at the pros and cons here. Let's close it up. Very good build quality. I was actually surprised how much it felt like a Surface 4 Pro. Very high quality, just a little bit heavier. Solid design, really well done. Brilliant keyboard. I can't stress this enough. I was so surprised how great the feedback was. The tactile one, so nice with amount of pressure. Great. Small, but very good trackpad, absolutely. Very good display. Like I said, high quality, maybe not high res, but high quality. And that is, after all, what counts. And therefore, we have an even better battery life than we would have with a more higher res display. Top performance, absolutely, for all normal tasks and everything else. The i5 performs on an i5 level, which is what it is. You just have to know if that is good enough for you, or maybe even too much, because I think for normal users, actually the i3 variant should be even good enough, and that maybe is the one that I maybe should have used as well, because of temperatures and so on and the noise. Good temps. 40 degrees in normal use, usually at max, and never more than 60, which is absolutely solid. Never really loud. A little bit whiny, but never loud. Good battery life, and we have the active pen included. That is great. Now let's talk about the not that great stuff. It could be lighter, 880 grams. Felt noticeably heavier in my opinion. No backlit keyboard by default. Like I said, I read about that there should be some configurations available that have it, but I just couldn't find it. Maybe it's regional depending, I'm not quite sure. Only 1080p display, it's in brackets because I don't really care. I would have wished for something even more so sharp, but it's not really necessary if you do all the normal stuff, and therefore you have no scaling issues. Poor speaker. This, along with the whiny fan, are my two main complaints. Without that, I would have been all over this in terms of price point. The poor speaker is nothing you can really change. I've tried it, there's nothing possible. The fan being active too often. This could be easily fixed if they push out an update, or if you want that the performance, then at least one issue is solved. But it's the poor speaker still, after all. The whiny fan, like I said. And what would have been nice would have been a fanless Core M version, but to sum this up, and just in terms of value, I've seen configurations in the US from 600 to 800, and it offers a lot, because after all, it's still Core i5, there is a Core i7 version and Core i3 version with the pen, with the type cover that works really great, high quality. And like I said, everything besides the sound, the speakers, is high quality. And if the speaker is not important for you, for this price, you get a lot. It's really a great offering. Usually I use Bluetooth speakers, so I could get away with that. And one thing that I would wish for to see, maybe I get confirmation beside it, I want an update, because they could improve the fan management, and then this is very high up top on my list, because you don't need to pay almost twice for a Surface 4 Pro if you want a very, very similar experience. And this is where I'm gonna leave it. Like I said, speakers, not great, and the fans, which are the second actually weakness, could be easily fixed. And maybe they are. I don't know, maybe I have an older firmware or something like that. Or like I said, check the description, and if I get some confirmation back from Lenovo, I will let you know then there. Other than that, I hope you like this review. give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, leave any comments and questions down below, and otherwise a nice day and Merry Christmas.